Good evening, good evening. Welcome once again. You guys know what it is. It's Thursday night. We welcome you back to Let's Talk Live with the International Mindset Maven. I am your host, Shayla Bryan. So, Let's Talk Live focuses on helping women get back dominion over their mind and their life by conquering the most common challenges women face on a day to day basis. Now, we do this through dynamic teachings, healthy, strategic conversations with powerful, dynamic women who come on this platform to share and impart knowledge. Now, my overall mission of why I come every single week, every Thursday, is to help women become bold, courageous, and take action. But see, we have to help you develop some healthy boundaries, some healthy beliefs, and some healthy behaviors. So definitely, it is such a blessing to always come every Thursday with the opportunity and the privilege to impart knowledge. And every other Thursday, I will have a special guest. And tonight, I have a special guest. I have been waiting. I couldn't wait for tonight to hear what this woman of God has to say. I mean, when I'm talking about a knowledgeable woman, I am grateful that she said yes. I don't take no one's yes for lightly, and she could have been absolutely anywhere else, but she's here tonight. So I want to introduce none other than beautiful, amazing Jazz Feliciano, the founder of
Oh
Love.
my God.
Thank you so much for being here
I'm so
tonight.
shy.
So I'm going to give you the floor and I'm going to ask you to tell the people about you, who you are, what you do, and let's go from there.
Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm just so humble right now. But yeah, definitely thank you to everybody that's catching this live stream. Really appreciate it. My name is Jazz. I'm the owner of Brew. I'm essentially the mastermind behind creating yoni steaming products for women to improve their womb health. And essentially, it's coming from a very holistic point of view where it's combining not just the physical aspect, but the spirituality aspect, the mentality aspect, the emotional sense. So it's all mind, body, and spirit. And that's essentially how I approach my healing practices. So, a little bit about me and my background. Been in the healthcare industry for about 16 years. Started very young, was working between an office and straight into a hospital, where I did a toss up between clerical work and clinician work as a radiation therapist. I was a radiation therapist for about 8 of those years. And I really enjoyed the practice, but I started to study the herbal medicine and became more attracted to the plant medicine and wanted to gear my career towards in that direction. I've been around essentially treating pretty much everything that was related to cancer because that's essentially the center of what radiation therapy is. That's the essential, the market, so to speak. And we were responsible, rather, I was responsible for delivering treatment using a radiation machine that produced high energy radiation. And essentially, you were just lining up the patient, or in other words, having the patient lay down on the table and essentially centered the machine right over the tumor or the side of the tumor where it may be at or it may have been extracted at from surgery. And then we would deliver radiation on a course of 30 to 35 to 45 days, just depending on what type of the histology, which is the study of the tissue, and essentially what the progression of that disease was. So it was very intricate. Lots of science involved in it. Lots of radiation physics that was involved with it, and that was essentially my job and my responsibility. While I was doing that, I was studying herbalism. I've always had a inclination to stick to plant medicine and see how plant works. And I've always been attracted to gardening, and that's what essentially connected me to study herbalism and see how that reacts in a patient's body. Um, and so it was kind of difficult and hard to try to practice that real time when the whole time I'm being directed to treat people with radiation. So it was a very conflicting time for me. because I so bad wanted to deliver information. I so bad wanted to educate people that you could use plant medicine as well, when you're subjected to, just treating patients here on a day out. So as a result, I went back to school while I was working full time. I went back to school, obtained my business degree because I wanted to expand my knowledge and now put it into a business practice. So I felt it was more logical approach to make sure that I had the basis and the awareness of how to start a practice that was essentially uh, logistical and reasonable, doing it the right way, essentially. And so I wanted to make sure I was covering all my bases. And so I continue to study, continue to practice radiation therapy, and then I decided, okay, I need to kind of like merge out of the career and find my avenue and see where I can go with this. Because now here I am working in conventional medicine, traditional settings, to now wanting to go the holistic route. How can I best achieve that? So at that time, I decided, well, I'm going to come out of it, the clinical practice, and I'm going to start teaching it, which I did. I started to teach radiation therapy um, at Cambridge College, which is located in Delray Beach. And I did that for a couple years, and I studied pretty much every course that was on the didactic program. And it was phenomenal. It was great, but at that ended the point, I started to realize that I wanted to totally get out of radiation. I didn't want any connections with it. I wanted to migrate back to what I know best, which is plant medicine. And one day, I saw a posting, and it was to work with a physician, and she was in what's called alternative medicine. So I have a hang up about the word alternative medicine because to me, this type of medicine has been around since ancient times. This is not anything
Right.
that's new. It's not a modern type of approach. It's been around for a very long time. So I find it's a very funny use of the word, so to speak. And so this practitioner, she had a position that was open to support her practice on the administrative end of it. And I was like, well, this is perfect because I have a business degree. So I could just migrate out of that and help this lady out in her office practice. And it's through her that I learned a lot about plant medicine and how it worked clinically. She also taught me essentially how um, the ins and outs of how it works on a biological scale, which was very cool because not only was she presenting me with facts, but she was also positioning me to see how it works realistically on a person's body, which was it was very cool, and it totally proved the point on how powerful plants are.
Yeah.
So now, going back way back, one of the practices that I used to practice was yoni steaming. Back when I first started menstruating, and to me, it was a normal thing. I actually learned about it through reading books. When I was essentially a child, um, I've always been exposed to the library. The library was like my safe haven, and anybody that's an introvert could probably relate to that. Um,
Right.
Especially if you love to learn. And so I've always read books, and I read books that were way past my age, my age range. But I've always find that stuff very fascinating. And so one of those was studying like holistic practices. So um, I came to that awareness at a very young age that this was something that made sense to me because it resonated. So I've always practiced it. And then I kind of fell off of it probably like about in my 20s. And then I rethought about it, and I was like, wait a minute, this could be very helpful
Right.
for women everywhere. Why is it not talked about? Why is it not fully embraced? So I always had that in the back of my mind. And as I was sitting in the office one day with the physician, just essentially having a conscious stream of thought in my head, I started to realize why is why something that you used to work so well for me. Why is it not promoted in the way as it should? Uh, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of yoni steaming practitioners out there. There are,
Right.
even though it's not blatantly publicized, they are out there. Um, but it's so far and few, especially when you talk about
It still
um,
seems like a myth
places.
when people hear yoni
Right.
steaming, right? Yeah, yeah. It's like a myth. It's
There's a
not something you hear.
correct. And unfortunately, you have like two reactions. You have like genuine interest, or you have people that just laugh about it because it's very humorous in a sense that you know, essentially people don't have the facts right as it presented to them, and it doesn't make sense. It becomes a joke. And
Right.
so with me, I'm very serious about this particular practice, not because not only does it work, but because it's an ancient remedy that brought a lot of women together, and essentially it brought a response of a circle of women to empower each other and to uplift each other in a sense that it was very comforting and very calming to have another sister, and it built up that sisterhood. Um, and it definitely became something that was an important practice. So now you're starting to see a lot of practitioners, including myself, who are now bringing that tradition back and respecting it and giving it the respect that it deserves. Because it's not a thing of one of the things that's heavily glamorized with yoni steaming is the fact that it makes a woman, wet, or it adds on to their sexuality. And while yeah, it does have that benefits, no, there's other prominent benefits to it, such as promoting circulation in the pelvic basin. It quells down the menstruation cramps, because essentially what it is and to those that are not fully aware of it, it's a warm infusion of these vapors from a combination of um, hot water, not super hot water, mind you. So you want to be careful with that. But it's a combination of hot water and an assortment of dried herbs, essentially. And it has to be specific herbs too, because they each play a role. And then you take the herbs and you put it into the hot water. You allow it to steep. And as the steams are coming up, it has a vaporized effect into the woman's vaginal canal. And the beneficial benefits for the plant oils is what essentially helps to make a beneficial effect to the womb itself. So it's not a thing of looking at it as this is great because it's gonna make me, uh, promoting this idea of being super tight or super wet. No, it has to do with essentially preserving the health from a holistic standpoint of the power of the womb itself.
Right.
And that's where it needs to stay, because it's essentially the basis for why we are giving that sense of uh, respect and integrity to the cosmic gateway of what God has blessed us with as women.
Right.
So,
Right.
and
As
that's
women,
that.
that's one thing that we
Yes.
have that makes us absolutely powerful is that the womb, right? That space
Yeah.
that our creators through that. And even for women who may not necessarily have the fertility privilege, the reality is that being a womb on in is already enough power within. So I want to recap very quickly because you draw the line between being in the industry where you watch people go through chemotherapy because you were physically hands on, helping this process of people getting their cells burnt, right? And
Yeah.
literally, I mean, you can kind of say this is the way that people are. And I'm going to be mindful with my words because we know what happens. Unfortunately, a lot of times you can't always tell stuff the way it should be said because
Yeah.
censoring is always the case. But what I'm trying to allude to is that when it comes to traditional medicine, it is going to always be easier to tell you to take this pill, to go to this particular physician, to take this treatment. All along, physicians know in the back end that they can yield to the plant based, they can yield to herbs, they can yield to other different treatments that have been way back in the day, right before, like traditional medicine became the big business that it is. It's a big pharmaceutical business, but the reality is that it doesn't pay, right? It doesn't pay because if I
Yeah.
can grow this herb in my backyard, it does not pay the average physician to tell you or I that we can, as a woman, we can heal our wound, that we can treat some of the
Yes.
infections, that we can treat some of the conditions that our bodies are. I mean, when you're sick, when you women who have cramps, women who have excessive bleeding, or they just have those different various issues that women have health wise, some of those can be reversed through holistic treatment. But no physician, or at least the average, isn't talking about it. It's just not. It's
Right.
not preservation of the human. It's big business. So I thank you for just bringing us
Right.
through that journey of how you really got exposed to that one arena, that you knew that when you know better, you want to do better, and now you know through your own creativity, because not only did you learn, hey, there's another way, you are now literally changing the way that women take care of their bodies. So tell me a little bit about how did you start the Love Box Brewing? What was that like for you? What was the process of starting that for you?
Oh wow. So I'll never forget. And this is my first time sharing this story with anybody.
Wow.
Um,
Oh wow,
I
we
remember
honor.
I I remember years ago. I want to say 2013. I had a dream, and there was this older woman that appeared to me, and in my dream, and I just happened to look up in the sky, and I saw the biggest full moon. It was gorgeous, and I remarked and I said, "Wow, that moon is so big." And this older lady grabs my wrist, and this is in a dream, and she looks to me and she says, May 19th, 2019. And I said, it's 2013. What does that mean? So here I am going about, my business. Years go past by and stuff like that. And as a result, I had this random idea just came out to me. And it was around like the last bit of April. And I was at work, I'm pretty much doing my paperwork and stuff like that. And I can distinctly hear God just saying to me that it's time to work on your mission. And I just got this whole collective image of what I
Wow.
needed to do. And from there, I was like, that's right. This was something that I want. It was the Yoni statement. This is something that I needed to like promote because it's always been in the back of my mind. And now it's just a matter of me just remembering. And it's like recycling. And so I sat there and I was just like, well, what am I going to call it? Because I don't know what could it be. So I decided to go into meditation, decided to go in prayer, and all of a sudden I see Love Box Brew, the name.
Wow.
And I was like, that's it. So I went online, I brought the website, I secured the Instagram name, I did the whole 9 yards.
On
Um,
this
because what's that?
on the spot, you just make sure you
Yeah, yeah,
secure the
yeah.
domain, everything. You got your property.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to secure essentially not just the name of it, but the fact that here's God our creator just, working through me
Yeah.
to show me how this was something that I needed to be led to do. And and I wanted to take it full advantage. And I was just like the whole time I was just saying thank you, thank you, thank you, because not only because like it was giving me that reminder of like Jazz, this is where you need to be, but it's also like you need to be on it now.
Wow.
So um yeah, so I went through with it and I secured my whole website, the social channels, and everything, all that good stuff. The next day, I went and registered because I wanted to keep it professional, and I registered the business name. And I was excited to do that because when I received the state paperwork, that's when I knew it was official. Um, and then from there, it just became like this whole trickle effect of how I started to get all these responses from all these ladies that were looking for something like yoni steaming, but from a very spiritual approach. And
Right.
I was like, wow, like I was really blown away, like how it impacted, locally, how many women were messaging me and being very inquisitive about what Love Box Brew is truly is. So, and then from there, I started to realize like, okay, yeah, I could definitely work with this. Um, and my whole mission behind it is to essentially um, provide these products and these services and these education to inspire women to take care of themselves and their wombs from a very holistic point of view where there's integrity and it's streamlined with who they are as women
Yeah.
from a very divine point of view. And I wanted to so hard stick on that because we have a responsibility for the next generation after us. And we need to reflect those similar values because not because of a matter of opinion, but it constructs a mindset within a woman that could in and of itself that's very healthy and is very healing. We hear a lot of the times where we have to heal our ancestral wounds and deal with generational healing. And this is the perfect example of why I wanted to start this business because it's a matter of not just healing the woman of today, but healing the daughters of tomorrow because we
Right.
carry the DNA scars within us. And if those don't get resolved, then they transpire to the next one. And so
Absolutely.
if we can stop that and we can do that today, who knows? Who knows how beautiful the world can truly be the next day? And we need to be receptive to that, and we need to be very conscientious of that. And we have a responsibility as women, especially women that possess, our womb. You stated that a lot of women, they may not have their physical aspect of their womb, but they truly do possess their energetic responses of the womb, even if it's not present there. Uh, Perfect example. A lot of women who deal with hysterectomy, they ask me, "Well, should I yoni steam because it's not like I have my parts?" And I said, "Yeah, you should be because you still have blood flow going into your pelvic basin, and you're
Right.
still getting that blood flow that's going into your legs. How do you think is gonna? What do you think is just gonna jump, skip, and then come over? No, it's still draining into your womb, even though it's not essentially there. You don't have the uterus, but it's still going in there. You're still possess a form of energy. You still could create. So therefore, that should even show you that you do possess the energy of the womb itself. So yeah, yoni steaming is great, even if you don't have your uterus or some of these identifiable feminine parts. Um,
That
but
doesn't really
going back
stop
to
you. It doesn't stop the process. I mean, I'll kind of give you a quick personal example because, well, first of all, I have two daughters and they're teenage girls, and I started a few years ago when it came down to the yoni steaming. You were my first time. You my yoni steam coach. My first time ever doing it with you, and I can tell you it was an amazing experience. But going to my daughters before I get to my experience with you, so I remember
yeah,
learning about when my daughters we had a conversation about how their bodies they feel out of order. They feel like when your cycle is on, or you know it's coming, or it comes twice in a month. And as females, as women alone, our bodies go through so many different changes. Sometimes it's beyond our control. So
yeah,
the ability to center yourself and take care of your body in such a form in that way you can you can truly gauge your energy when you are on your cycle, because the practice of the healing, the practice of the care, the practice of the nurturing, the practice of the cleansing, because that's really what I see yoni steaming as, was is cleansing. I started doing the Dr. Sadie products, and I started doing it his how he instructed women to utilize his cleansing products. And when I had my daughters do it, they were like, Mom, I feel so much better, right? Like there's so much power to the cleansing of the womb, the cleansing of the canal, the cleansing of the spirit, the cleansing of the body within itself. And the greatest canal for women, the greatest entry and exit of anything, what you call spiritual, what you call, we're going to leave it as spiritual, it's through the vaginal canal. So I
Yeah.
say that to say, when I first got into your amazing space to have my first yoni experience, it was more for me was a spiritual alignment. I remember just sitting there, no phone, just in this room where it was just quiet and it's mellow and it's this scented oils everywhere, and then it's like this book. I could have picked it up and read it, but my spirit just wanted to be still. And I remember just feeling a wholeness, like I felt whole. And then my body felt clean and I felt renewed, just because I had this theme and I had this herbs and I had this desire to just bring alignment to myself. So I think that we want to educate the women that yoni steam is way farther than what it's been sensationalized to be when it comes to
Yeah.
the, like you said, your private is going to be tight, or you're going to have this or that, and we're not going to get into those sensationalized statements. But I
Yeah.
believe that women need to be empowered and need to be educated that holistic treatments or wholeness, the journey to wholeness begins with your womb. And this is something, I mean, this book is a controversial book, but the content of it is powerful. I bought this book a long time ago. It's called Pussy Prayers. And the title alone can be very controversial because, I mean, Jesus Christ, I mean, it's called Pussy Powers. But the content of the book
Yeah.
is so powerful. It's really practices of sisterhood. It's how do we teach our generations before that will learn from our generations before and teach the generations after us what it means to be whole and healed. Because you and I
Correct.
talked about this, what I love to do every time I have a guest. I like to have one-on-ones with you, and I want to have you touch on this, because what happens is before we, or when we are virgins, yeah, we clean and we do holistic yoni cleaning, steaming, all that good stuff because of the practice of the cycle. You want to bring yourself back to cleanliness. But once you become sexually active, once you become, and this is going to be for all the women, particularly younger women, once you become sexually involved, now you start attracting more to your womb. That's not just the cycle or the
Yeah.
bacterial from having underwear that is, your body may be susceptible to certain type of material that's underwear is made out of. We know that some women, if you wear tight pants, it affects your anatomy as well. So I want you to touch on what you and I talked about when it came to how toxic relationships affects the body in a toxic way, and we feel it. And particularly your womb is going to get the attack of that toxicity, especially with narcissistic type of people. And I want you to just dive into the womb being affected by being in relationships that are unhealthy and toxic.
Oh, I love this one. um, wow, this takes me back. Uh, because essentially I was just reminded of how negative that whole experience was and how much it took me away from connecting with spirit, connecting with God. Um, and as a result, I started to reflect in the physical aspect. And I didn't understand it back then. But now that I'm older, and now I can see the ramifications of how I responded, how he responded, and the whole going back and forth, and just the very toxic behaviors, how it inflected onto the womb. So I will say that I'm only speaking from the woman perspective of it, obviously. I'm not 100% sure how would it affect a man per se, but I will say that the narcissistic relationship that I was involved with, he wasn't clinically diagnosed, but he did present with a lot of those traits. And so after years of just studying it, I came to the conclusion that this was a very unhealthy narcissistic relationship, which is very, unfortunately, is very common. And
Yeah.
we're coming to that age of awareness where it's a lot. It's a lot of cases out there, unfortunately. And the unfortunate part about it is that it affects a lot of men. And it's no knock on the men. Shout out to the guys. But statistics and studies have shown that it does affect men. And as a result of studying, I started to realize how it affects the victim. So, from a psychological standpoint, from an emotional one, it affects a person's ability to make decisions. It
Mm.
affects their judgment. It affects the part in their brain that deals with the fear center, which is called the amygdala. And what happens once that's agitated, it makes the person very fearful, and it makes them scared of pretty much anything that reminds them. Um, and some people will actually say that it kind of borderlines PTSD, but again, that's totally out of my aware understanding of that particular aspect. Um, but it affected me so much in my womb that I started to realize that I was carrying a lot of those energies that were very reflective of what this narcissistic person possessed. And as I started to study even more, when a woman and a man interact with a intimate setting, they're sharing information,
Right.
they're sharing DNA, they're sharing their energetic space. So when they're in that very intimate bond, everything that he is feeling, a woman is picking up on. And what happens is because we essentially become like sponges. And so we latch on to those energetic attachments. And as a result, it stays in our womb center, and it starts to manifest in particular ways, whether that's through attitudes, particular expressions about how we go about life, how we create, whether we create or not, once we're in that. For me, I felt like once I was in that whole mental state, that whole mindset, it was very terrifying. It was very toxic. And I struggled with school because it was around that time I was doing my last clinical rotation before I became a radiation therapist. So it affected me on that level where school became twice as hard because now, not because I wasn't getting what I'm understanding, but because here is my mind worried about what's going on with this guy, where's his mental status is at. So so yeah, it was very it was very terrifying. It was very toxic, and even the data supports that of how it causes uh, a very toxic ripple effect in the energetic centers of a womb. Uh, especially if you're very intimate with that person. So as I'm studying this and I'm studying to come to this realization, I was reading about cord cutting and cutting away from toxic energies and stuff like that via spirituality. A lot of times we can do the healing work as far as healing us physically, whether that's through participating through a womb steam or uh, any type of thing where we could, kind of like reset our body, so to speak. But if we do not address the energetic healing that needs to take place within the womb, especially after
Yeah.
going through a very toxic relationships, it's bound to repeat itself or reflect itself in your next relationship. So I'm a big speaker on taking breaks between relationships, um, to go back within yourself and heal those certain dynamics first, because you don't want to jump into the next relationship thinking, one, is it going to be a band-aid for the last experience you had,
Right.
and two, is it going to be something to keep you comfortable. And we need to shift out of that dynamic and be totally cool with just taking a break for yourself no dating whatsoever, and address those different issues because it needs healing. And I'm saying that across the board. I'm not just saying, totally keeping it to the narcissistic uh, position, but across the board, if you had a really toxic relationship or really ended on bad terms, you had to find peace within yourself. And this is going to involve a lot of forgiveness. It's
Right.
going to involve a lot of accountability for where you possibly messed up too, right? Because it's not just the guy, it's not just the girl. We have to take responsibility for and do a lot of self reflection, because that's going to be insanely important before moving forward.
Exactly.
Um, One of the things too on a physical level, I talked about how yoni steaming could be a solution for women who've experienced it. I also recommend working with crystals as well. Crystals are essentially healing stones that God the Creator left here on earth, and they all possess a specific energetic energy. And each one has a specific healing vibration, whether that's love, peace, whether that's pulling out toxicity from your energetic centers of your body. And each one responds to you accordingly. And you work with that crystal and you put it over your womb. We also, like, for in my practice, we have the yoni crystal eggs, where you can either hold the actual crystal or you can insert it into the vaginal canal, and it stays there as you meditate, you pray, and you find peace and you bond. And the whole premise behind that, again, is center on healing. That's clearly what it is. Because, like I said, physical aspect of cleansiness and healing is important, and it's great for purification and essentially balancing the spirit.
Yeah.
But we also need to address the energetic aspect of it too, because that's just as important as well. So um, I'm just gonna say this: when it comes to healing, it's more than just a one type of surface thing. You have to incorporate everything because that's just the way how the creator created. So
Right.
yeah,
I mean, I want to say that healing, we hear that all the time. I mean, I've been hearing the word healing for so long. And what I feel like happens in society, often people tell you what you should do and don't tell you how to do it. And I'm a
yeah,
parent, so when I ask my children to clean up, I'm not just saying go clean up your room. I'm literally saying you're gonna just wash your laundry. That's part of your cleaning. You're going to take all your sheets and change them. You're going to vacuum. You're going to remove clothes that don't belong anymore, that don't fit you anymore. That's part of cleaning. So when we
yeah,
talk about healing, when we're telling women that, oh, you need to heal before you get into another relationship, or you need to heal before you go do X, Y, and Z job, or before you start a business, before you go in ministry or do X, Y, and Z activity, what does that look like? So my whole concept when it comes to imparting is to teach you the how to do it. Healing requires to cleanse. You have to change your eating. You have to change what you're listening to. You have to start reading books, listening to more audios that are going to influence and ignite their spirit to be more optimistic and positive. You're going to be require some solitude. I mean, that's a requirement, not a suggestion, not an option. It's a
yes,
requirement to learn to be by yourself. Yes, yoni steaming helps because that's now cleansing on a spiritual level. You have to detox your body. You have to. You have to be able to tell your
yeah,
body what's in here. I don't want it anymore, and get rid of it. You either take teas and you drink teas and you flush your digestive tract, which is important. That's part of detoxing. In your spirit, you have to know that the spirit is consciousness. You have to renew the mind. You have to release, forgive yourself for the poor choices, the bad mistakes, the people that you allowed in your life, the people who you had intercourse with, because obviously, like you just broke it down very simply. When you get involved with a man, you have intimacy, but that's just not the conversation intimacy, but it's physical, where you're now receiving this person's energy. You're receiving this person's identity. You're receiving willfully in your body, and it stores, right? It
correct,
stores. That's when you eat something, it's been statistically shown and studies shown that when you eat a piece of steak, it may take up to 3 days for that to digest in your system, and you poop it out. Imagine that.
absolutely,
You're in a relationship with someone who does not respect you, who talks down to you, is abusive, that is unhealthy, that is detrimental to their spirit itself, and you with this person for a period of time, 3 6 months, a year, and and so on and so forth. It takes maybe the same time or twice the amount of time to get that out of your system.
Correct.
It's a psyche thing. Now, like you said, it affects the study. It affects your daily method of getting around through life, and it affects your and how you involve yourself and how you show up around people. So it is
Yes.
important that women, when we are teaching other women that are coming out of relationships that were not good for them, that was not healthy. That's just, we throw it around often, but it is what it is. We need to teach women how to do it on a holistic level. It is steps to this thing. It is processes to do. It's dynamic ways of doing it, and to each their own. But I can tell you, as a woman, if your womb, if that place where the Bible says that out of your belly flows rivers of water, I'm talking about fresh water, fresh anointing. If that thing is unhealthy, I'm sorry, there's not much, nothing unhealthy coming out of that. To be honest.
Exactly. Yeah.
So brings me to the question of how you cleanse, how you got yourself whole again. What was it that you did? I know you shared a little bit about your meditating, your praying, and the mother nature just being in that space. So just bring me to that process of how did you get back healed and whole.
Thank you. So, um, I started to realize that I needed to connect back to God. And so one of the things that I like to do is I like to go outside underneath the sun and meditate. Go on the ground barefoot, connect with the earth, and really stabilize myself and the energies that I have. Um, what it does, it allows me to hear the spirit. It allows me to connect with the earth that's around me. It allows me to just be still. And a lot of times we're such on this, this fast pace. We need to do this. We need to do that. That we totally um, objectifies ourselves to go on this whole journey of everything's all action oriented. Like I got to do this. I got to do that. Rather
Right,
than just relying on surrendering and going within yourself. And the biggest practice that I did was solitude, was realizing that there's more to this life at this point than just me chasing the bag, me being in the next best relationship, me doing all of this just for the sake of success and ambition and stuff like that. Is totally taking me out of my element, not just as a woman, but as a human being. And the privilege that I have here to come here into this life and be able to carry out my purpose and do it in such a way where um, it's for the greater good, and having that responsibility. And at the same time, it's just I need to bring back peace into myself, and I need that sense of serenity where I can just be still.
right.
So one of the things that I did was go outside and meditate, and from there, I heard spirit just remarked about some of the things that I need to do going forward to heal my body. So Yoni steaming was one of those. Working with crystals and doing the healing work of prayer through breath work. And if people are not familiar with that, I highly recommend checking out. There's plenty of YouTube material out there that discuss about how to use breath work with regards to meditation, because it helps to stabilize your body, keeps you grounded, and it has a lot of healthy benefits as it relates to that. And the purpose behind that is to bring breath back into the life of my womb, and that's what I wanted, because I had this toxic energy that was still there, and I felt it. I knew it was there because it was manifesting. As it was manifesting, it was projecting out. And one of those things that I saw in myself was masculinity, this heavy weight of being angry, which I was never like that type. I was never the type to be super aggressive, uh, being very condescending, being very approach to it was very. And I'm not saying that masculinity is toxic in any type of way, but it was totally outside of the feminine aspect, and it just very was unusual. It was very unstable. I want to put it as it was very unbalanced.
Right.
Um, and so I didn't feel I was honoring that femininity about myself. Now, mind you, we do possess, both masculine and the feminine aspect of ourselves. But when it's unbalanced, as an awakened woman in this life, it starts to come forth as being very irritated, being very unreasonable, being
Hmm.
very argumentative, and it's a turnoff. So so when I saw those qualities, I was just like, okay, something needs to happen here. Uh, so for me, the first step was awareness, and once I came to that awareness, it was now okay. Now I need to be still. Once I became still, okay, now I need to seek solitude, and I need to speak with God, and I need to connect, and I need to stay plugged in until I start to work these different aspects of myself that obviously was manifesting within myself. And so I addressed those issues. I forgave myself my reactions. I forgave the guy's reactions and his behavior. Um, One of the things too is I started to incorporate my healing work with my father, and building a bond with my dad, because I started to realize that I needed to heal that aspect with my dad, because that's essentially where it starts for a woman. That's our first love. So it's just like I need to bring back that sense of healing between us both. Um, because we never really saw each other like eye to eye or anything like that. Um, and that's, typical, especially when you're growing up as a teenager. And from there, we just it was never like one of those very close bond. But once I come to the realization that I needed to do that healing work to reiterate that bond, and make it stronger than what it is, out of respect for him as a parent and me as his daughter, then that's when I started to realize like this could deeply affect my relationships in the future going forward.
Right.
So I wanted to address that. And yeah, and once I did that, I felt this immense peace like just take over my whole entire spirit. And I was like, wow, this feels good. And I need to promote this, because this goes hand in hand with essentially the whole uh, the whole concept of generational healing, and
That's right.
healing those dynamic in our families, and so that we could be the beacon of who we are as women. So
That's that's beautiful. And I can listen. I can relate completely to that when it comes to healing your relationship with your father. For the women who have that issue, it's necessary. It's not a general
yes,
situation. It doesn't apply to everybody. There are women, I've met quite a few women who have healthy, nurturing relationship with their dad. They're in their 40s, their dad in their 60s, 70s, and they're still daddy's little girl. But there are
yeah,
women like us who for some reason through our the trajectory of our growing in evolving from young girls to women, there was some breakdowns in the relationship, growing, building, establishing, and consistency of their such. So when there is a breaking point within the father and the daughter, and the gap is never filled, or that bridge is never closed properly, what happens is it's a void, and that void usually we go and seek to fill it with what we know to compatibly look for in a man, which is that acceptance and the affection and the desire to be nurtured, because man can nurture too. I don't know why we in society as a human breed, God made women and men in his image and likeness. So women are no different from men and men are no different from women. What makes us different is our body parts. But
yeah,
we have a heart, we have sensories, we have thoughts, we have the exact same things. I don't have what a man have between his legs. So that's the only thing that separates. When I have I have three daughters and one son. When I had my two daughters, I was good. When I had my first one and when I had my second one, I was good. I was like, okay, I'm a pro. I know how to change baby girl diapers. I know how to legs. But listen, honey, the day I had my son, I'm looking at this little boy and his little wee wee. I'm like, what's supposed to do with him? What's supposed to do with this, right? So it was a learning curve, and I'm like, okay, but I'm a mom. But the idea is just not because I'm a mom. I did not understand or did not know, and I wasn't used to a son. So I had to learn all over again how to be a mother to a boy. So I say that to say that healing and the void and those gaps and the bridges that we have as people, as adults, when it comes down to our parents, it matters. It makes a difference. It shows up in the relationships as adults. It do. And when you
Yes.
a girl who don't have a healthy relationship with your dad, who doesn't really tell you that he loves you, you want to hear that from a man. You want to hear that male voice say, I love you and you're beautiful and X, Y, and Z. Yeah, granted, if your father is not around in the physical, the natural, we have a Holy Spirit that connects us to a divine God who is the creator of who we are, regardless, is our maker. However, he gave us earthly fathers as well as a channel. We
Yeah.
are connected to our earthly fathers. So what we do, of course, we submit to our heavenly father. So when you go under that tree, you go into that organic space where nature connects with you. Yes, when your divine father and your holy father says, I am embracing you. I am receiving you. I am here with you. I love you. You mean everything. You're the apple of my eyes. That's a big deal. But that
Yes,
requires what?
absolutely.
The detoxification of the mind, their spirit, their body, and the soul. But it's a process. And I appreciate you sharing that because for women, it's difficult to really be honest and transparent that they have daddy issues, and that shows up in the poor choices in men. For many of us, it's a
Yeah.
shameful thing to admit, but it's needed. I mean, I wrote my book with the desire and the intent to help women understand how that bridge, that separation between one and our dads, how when we get of age and we can make our own mind up, when you 18, 19, 20, you think you're grown, you start picking a boyfriend, and next thing you know, you're not picking healthy relationship in a boyfriend,
Yep.
right? You're picking the total opposite. You're just looking for companionship. You're looking, like they call it, the love in the wrong places, but you're not necessarily looking for love. You're looking for reciprocity and acceptance from a man who's supposed to already have done that and should be doing that, especially if he's alive. So I thank you for being vulnerable. That is so important that we can, all perspective open on the platform is that we need to talk about how not having relationships with our dad affects our relationships with the man that we go into intimate, sexual, romantic, spiritual relationships with, because there will be a very, very sad mirror if we are not careful and set those healthy behaviors, beliefs, and boundaries. So thank you for that, man. That was, listen. You went somewhere. G Louis, you went
Yes.
somewhere. So bring us back to what I want to close with as we're getting close to the time. You are considered a priestess of the womb. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. A womb priest.
Yes.
What womb priestess? That's what you call it.
Yeah.
Tell me
The
about
womb
that.
priestess.
Educate the
So
people about
so essentially the womb priestess, the responsibility is to use the light of God, um and channel that creator energy to bring in healing and to be a beacon to heal other women, using not just the medicinal practices, but also to foster a sense of a divine responsibility to bring back the love and care that's projected from the creator onto others in the attempt, or essentially in the effort um, to bring about healing and awareness, and also to foster and start a catalyst, so to speak,
it.
so that women are not just healed today, but we're worrying about the women tomorrow. So when I became a womb priestess, I was initiated through another priestess, um, and she essentially guided me to become educated and aware about yoni steaming. Not just from the physical aspect of it, but from the spiritual aspect as well. So I learned through her, and I learned the mechanisms, and I learned the history about it. Um, and now I'm just practicing what I know and sharing the information onto others. And essentially, my whole premise behind it is to inspire somebody out there. Not just to go on loveboxbrew.com and buy my products, but essentially carry out the responsibility of how the healing of the womb is very important, and how you can do the same thing to another woman, and again start that whole catalyst, because that's essentially what Love Box Brew is. It's starting the catalyst so that we could start something beautiful today and continue it on out for the future.
Yes, that's beautiful. That is very much
Thank you.
true. I'll tell you that you became the catalyst to another level of my healing because I already have been on the journey of healing and wholeness for myself. So when I got
Oh,
into
I love
your
it.
space, and not only did you educate me about what the steaming process was like, but we prayed, we fellowship, you nurtured
Yes,
my spirit, you received me where I was, and you helped me increase. You fill me up as far as my tank and my vessel because we spent some time together. We were able to get to know where we are, who we are, and most importantly, you saw where for me this was beyond a necessity. This is a journey and a practice that requires someone who's equipped. That's like you knowing that you are broken, and they tell you, no, if you go to church and you go to the people, then they'll pray and they will hold your hand and they will fellowship with you, come in agreement with you for restoration and renewal. That's what that womb priestesses does. That's what you did for
yes,
me when I came into your space and I was just desiring the next level of my healing. And that was where my canal, my openness, right? Where I was able
yeah,
to open myself to God to really just flow and give me that tranquility, that peace, and releasing. Because when you open up yourself, you have to release something. Something got to come out of you. And I'm just grateful that
absolutely.
you decided to say yes to God and you decided to take on the practices of ancient history that has for generations and for generations has really been the true path of holistic approach to healing. Because I'm telling you,
Absolutely.
the Advil is not going to do it. The IUD is not going to do it. All these birth controls that have been marketed are not going to do it, right?
Oh,
Taking all these listen, all these painkillers, all these extra stuff, even my backaches that I had from my cycle went away. My God,
that's
even that
beautiful.
went away. So I'm just telling you, I am grateful that you said yes to God. You said yes to the opportunity to be a pillar and a light and a voice of wisdom because we all have been given gifts. And God gave you that gift that you're going to utilize His knowledge, His wisdom to help His daughters, your fellow sisters, the mothers and the grandmothers and the daughters of the generation that you were part of to really go back into centeredness, to go back into holistic alignment. That's so powerful.
Yes,
And your t-shirt was
I
wow.
love it.
I love you see I've been bragging about your t-shirt that the mood is in alignment with my divine
Thank you.
assignment. Say if I could wear that every day, I would. Right? But people gonna be like, does she got any
Yeah,
more clothes?
I
Anyway,
do.
I do. I do. But that shirt has been for me such a powerful, powerful statement. It's a big statement that it is a mood, ladies, just to be in alignment to God and to just to know that you've been divinely assigned to a mission of a group of women who need you. And I can forever tell you thank you because my children's children, that means my granddaughters of the future, would have already been healed because of the decisions that I made today. So I thank you. I
Absolutely.
honor you. I celebrate you because you're necessary. So I want you to tell the people how they can find you because they need your products. They need your wisdom. They need your information and your impartation for wholeness, for centeredness, and for alignment right back to God to be channeled because the frequencies that we are vibrating off are very important to what's on the inside of us. So, how can people find
Yes.
you, God?
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. well, you guys can all find me at loveboxbrew.com, where I sell all the Yodi seeming products as well as Yodi crystals, sage bundles, incense, and other tools that you can use to best facilitate your whole womb experience. You can find me on Instagram, lovebx brew as one word. You can find me on Facebook as well. That's facebook.com/loveboxbrewco. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I'm working on sending a little bit more educational pieces for those who subscribe, as well as I sent out discounts for um, people who may be interested in purchasing a product and want to give it a try and stuff like that. So I extend a little discount to take off on your first purchase. Yeah, definitely. I do spend a lot of my time on Instagram, mostly posting a lot of information as it relates to women's health and bringing the focus back on essentially bringing awareness and knowledge about how to care for the womb from a very natural medicine perspective. So I do talk about a lot of expert advice and some of the popular things that are happening in our community, especially. And my whole thing is, not only to bring awareness, but to bring on prevention because that's going to be the biggest thing going forward. So I'm a big proponent on that. So you could definitely find me pretty much over there. If you want to contact me for business inquiries, feel free. I my email is jazz at loveboxbrew.com.
Awesome. Let
And
me you
that's
bless
that.
me. You bless me. I can tell you, ladies, for those who are live, thank you so much. I posted the comments on the screen so they can be visible. And I'm going to go back and, of course, add your website. But loveboxbrew.com. You want to go there. You want to inbox her. You want to get some questions answered about your body. Let me tell you, ladies, and I'm going to close the hour with this one word of wisdom that when it comes down to healing and holistic approach, when it comes down to getting back into your wholeness, if you don't have cleanliness of your womb, ladies, hear me well. If you do not have cleanliness of your womb, you will still be toxic. You will read all the books in the world. You can pray the house down if you want to. But if your womb is still carrying residue from the demons and from the toxicity, from the unhealthiness, from the all of those things that you don't harbor in there, stored in there, because it is a storage, by the way. That's why we have eggs in there.
Yeah.
That's why we have different things that God is putting there. We harbored and host and carry the previous relationships, those sexual fluids, those mindsets, those identities are still stored in our womb. So I'm going to encourage ladies, hear me well. You need to inbox my sister Jazz and get some information so that you can get healed, whole, and aligned through cleanliness of your womb. With that said, thank you so much, man. I can't wait for us to do this
Thank
again.
you. I appreciate it.
It's been an absolute blessing,
Yes,
so
me
guys.
too. I would love
Yes,
to expand on it.
absolutely. We're gonna get into some more other topics. I already know what we can talk about the next time around. So, guys, with that said, it's been a pleasure
Yes.
having you. You already know this is your host of the Let's Talk Live with the International Mindset Maven. This is Shayla Bryan. It's been a blessing. Until next Thursday, everybody be blessed.
Bye, everybody.